It's great to have so many of you joining us today, and I'm pleased to say that our alumni and friends community, we have over 1,500 participants joining us this morning, or this afternoon or this evening, depending on where you are joining us from in the world. We have over 80 countries represented, and it really is my pleasure to be able to host this seminar and this webinar with you today. So this webinar today then, we're looking at a really hot topic at the moment, and one I think I can say and speak on behalf of all of us that we're very passionate on the call today about, and that is looking at smart, sustainable and affordable in relation to supply chains, and can supply chains have it all? And I want to thank you all once again for joining us this morning for what's set to be a really exciting dialogue and narrative. In terms then of the Warwick alumni community, it's now more than 295,000 people strong, and worldwide, as I said, we have over 80 countries represented joining us on this call this morning. And it really is an incredible global community like no other. I'm Dr. Rebecca Wilde, and I'm the Head of Business Innovation, Supply Chain and Trade here at the University of Warwick, within Warwick Manufacturing Group, or WMG as we fondly like to call it. And I really am, as I've said, delighted to be hosting this conversation today. We've got a really fascinating discussion ahead, and I invite you to comment and interact in the chat as the discussion progresses. We'll also be exploring and referring to several questions that you have sent us in advance, and I want us to reflect upon them throughout. I think we're all aware supply chains are under increasing pressure to balance sustainability, affordability and resilience. And this webinar, we're going to explore how businesses can navigate these challenges, leverage innovation and create supply chains that are both environmentally and economically sustainable. And with me today, in order for me to do this, I'd like to welcome our guests and ask them to take the virtual floor and say a few words about themselves before we begin. So firstly, I'd like to pass over to my most esteemed colleague, Dr. Tarek Al-Said, for a brief introduction. So Tarek, the virtual floor is yours.
All right, thank you very much for this very, very warm introduction, Rebecca. My name is Tarek Al-Said. I am an assistant professor at WMG, Warwick Manufacturing Group, part of the supply chain teaching group. Just a bit of an introduction about myself. I have a PhD on sustainable supply chain management, actually, and I was looking at the product design element and how product design decisions feed into sustainable supply chain, along with process design. So the idea of three-dimensional concurrent engineering, where you're trying to align the constraints of sustainability, supply chain, and process design all at the same time. I also have a research focus when it comes to mobile business intelligence, which is the availability of real-time data to enhance supply chain performance, and how do we drive supply chains through data-driven decisions. Across the years, I've been teaching in this field, supply chain and logistics management, and I've also managed to do a number of consultancies across Europe and the Middle East. And before joining academia, I had just a brief time in the automotive industry, where I worked for a tier one supplier to some of the big names such as JLR and Volkswagen. So just a brief about myself. Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
Wonderful. Thank you, Tarek. And if I can next pass then to Clara, so Clara Chan, who is one of our alumni joining us on the call. So Clara, the virtual floor is yours.
Thank you, Rebecca. Hello, everyone. I'm Clara Chan, the CEO of Leaky Group from Hong Kong. Maybe I'll do a bit of introductions about Leaky Group, and because all my information I believe is already in the introduction flyer. So Leaky Group started in 1947. We've been all about creating value solutions for metals, whether this is through responsible sourcing, sustainable manufacturing, or cutting-edge technologies. So it's great to be here with you today at this webinar, where we are focusing on smart, sustainable, and affordable supply chains. And these visions is very close to what we do at Leakey. Over the years in the metals industries, we've learned that sustainability is not just having good intentions. It's about practical, actionable approaches and that deliver real results. And we focus on 3 areas. First, we position ourselves that we don't just supply metals, we build responsible supply chains where every materials can be traced to its source, ensure it complies with regulatory requirements. And secondly, we reimagine manufacturing, not just making products, but designing process that conserve resources, reuse materials, and maintain quality while reducing waste. And third, we embrace technologies, whether this is using AI to optimize our operations or IoT to monitor energy use. So we are still exploring what's next to improve our manufacturing process. So thank you for having me today. I'm excited to share our experience and learn from all of you today.
Wonderful. Thank you ever so much, Clara. And finally, by no means least, I'd also like to introduce Michelle Wang, who is also one of our esteemed Warwick alumni. So Michelle, the virtual floor is yours.
Thank you, Rebecca. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Michelle Wang. I'm currently working at Hitachi Energy as the head of sourcing, contract, and partner management. So I'm based in Zurich in Switzerland. First and foremost, I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to Warwick Alumni for having me here, have the opportunity to be part of the distinguished panelists as we have today. It's really a great honor for me, and thank you for bearing with me. And sustainability as a topic is very personal and very close to my heart, and it's highly relevant, right, in today's world, as Rebecca introduced at the beginning. A bit myself, I'm a WMG alumni 20 years ago. Without revealing my age, I have spent most of my time in industries, mainly in aerospace, and now in Hitachi Energy, which is the energy sector. And I always believe that the industry plays a crucial role in reducing our environmental impact, and sustainability can be a competitive advantage for the companies and really help us to align with the business value with our customers. So I really look forward to sharing my thoughts and industry practices with you today. And thank you once again for having me here. So excited.
Wonderful. Thank you, Michelle. And it really is a pleasure to be having our alumni represented on this webinar today. As I've mentioned, thank you as well to our alumni and our friend community for submitting your questions in advance of today's webinar. Like I say, there's a selection of them that we're going to talk to today, but please again do feel free to put any questions or comments that you do have in the live chat below. We're now going to move on to the discussion and try and get through as many of those questions as possible. The first question that I'm going to ask the panel, and this is to Clara, Tarek, and Michelle, to all of you, and I think it's a really pertinent one for us to start with, is why do we need to address sustainability and affordability in supply chains?
Do we start first?
Of course.
Okay. I think it is very important because focusing on this area, sustainability and also affordability in the supply chains, to ensure that we have long-term viabilities and also competitiveness. And these 2 factors are very important to any business. Sustainable practice ensure that we have positive impacts to the environment. Resources are using more efficiently, and also this will help to build the brand reputation as well. And at the same time, we also have to have an affordable supply chain. And this will ensure that these practices are more economically viable and accessible to all stakeholders. So I think that these 2 are the factors in the supply chains are the focus that many businesses should pay attention to.
Wonderful, fantastic. Tarek or Michelle, anything you'd like to add? Michelle?
I can give an industry perspective of it.
Wonderful. Oh, that'd be great.
I'm very fortunate, working in Hitachi Energy, where sustainability is actually our core strategy, right? And our purpose is advancing a sustainable energy future for all. So it's almost a mandate, it's a flow down of the corporate strategy come to supply chain. And I have also to say, Hitachi Energy, we're a global business, right? We have 45,000 employees. Just put things in perspective. And on the other hand, we also have very extensive supply chain. We have over 40,000 suppliers dotted around probably 120 countries. So in this way, it also brings challenges, from multiple countries, different size of the business in the supply chain, how we can make sure the sustainability strategy has also been embedded in our supplier base. And we have some measures, right, which I probably can, not overwhelming on this topic, but I will mention later on of the webinar.
Wonderful, fantastic. Yeah, and I think a key thing there is how do you embed the strategies? Tarek, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
Absolutely, and I'll just build on to what my esteemed colleagues have said. Is that how we understand sustainability it's about business continuity. So business continuity has two sides actually. The first side is to make sure that we still have the resources that we need in order to develop the products, the services that are in demand. But the other perspective is the social aspect, and sometimes the social sustainability element is it comes kind of second place after the environmental sustainability. But the social sustainability element is also a huge factor because in understanding consumers who are one of the main stakeholders in all this, we understand how demand is driven, and today's consumers are becoming more aware of the impact that their decisions have over the supply chain, over emissions and things like that. And they are thinking how these decisions that they're making, these products, these services that they're acquiring, are having an impact on the overall sustainability of the environment that they're living in. So when we are designing supply chains, as my colleagues have accurately said, it has become now a competitive advantage actually to embed sustainability into your practices. Now, the tricky part is how it's actually done, taking into account changing politics, taking into account changing demand behavior from consumers, taking into account resource availability and scarcity, taking into account all of this, and actually being able to achieve true sustainability and not just greenwashing is very, very difficult, which is why bringing such a topic to the forefront in such a webinar is a really good opportunity to discuss and see potential solutions to some of the problems that we're currently facing.
Sure. And we also need to recognize it's a journey. It's not something we're straight, to a perfect situation.
Absolutely.
And it's a change of mindset too.
Yeah. And I think it is that community, and it's bringing us all together to start the dialogue, isn't it? And to begin the conversation and to think about how can we operationalise and move forward. And I think that segues very nicely, and thank you, Michelle, Clara and Tarek for that, into my next question, thinking now at a micro level about strategies. And as you rightly said, Michelle and Clara, embedding these strategies. So what strategies do you think supply chains implement to achieve these sustainability goals whilst maintaining affordability and resilience across diverse industries, from public services but also to global logistics? And I might invite you first, Michelle, to jump in on that one first, if that's okay, given that it leads on from your previous comment.
Sure. I mean, at the end of the day, we always need to look at what the types of, the product services that we serve and we buy, and what's the type of suppliers and the geographic locations and the overall environment, as Tarek mentioned. But what we do in Hitachi Energy, and we look core. There's three aspects that we look at really core. One is our supplier base management, right? How we work with the supplier to, for example, build that into our sourcing criteria, right? So if we think it is important, we don't only evaluate supply chain based on merely the cost. So sustainability element also would be part of it. And on the other hand, we're also working closely with the supplier in supporting the supply chain. So we have multiple programs in place, such as we have this sustainability development program that we both invest into the resource to see how we can overall bring that sustainability and embed it into our supply chain. And also from a compliance point of view, from the technology point of view, how we can using the tools bring in more visibility, and then so we understand where the gaps are, because this is a new, relatively new area. So all the information we have may not be very straightforward for various compliance purposes, or understand where the development, the points are. So we were looking at those perspectives.
Wonderful. And I think visibility, like you say there, Michelle, is a real big thing. Clara, if I could pass to you now.
Sure. Mainly we focus on four areas. The first one is we want to understand the consumer behaviors and trends. So in our business as a metal suppliers, we work very closely with the industries. We talk to the customers about the product trends, their product design, and try to get involved on their early design stage, the product design stage, and that will help us to talk to our customers on their product choice and also material choice and also the production process and also the requirements. That will shorten the whole purchase cycle or our communications with our customers, so that it also make the whole process more transparent and efficient. Secondly, that we do stakeholder engagement. So we talk to our service provider as well, explain to them our sustainability strategies, and also understand their sustainability journey as well. So how we can work together as a partner, and also share our views on our green adoption plans, especially on the logistics side. There's not many logistic company at the moment has a very clear green adoption plans, but we want to work with them together, how we can move the industries together. And thirdly is responsible sourcing. So we talk with our suppliers and explain to them that our responsible sourcing guidelines, and if they cannot fully meet with the guidelines at the moment, at this stage, that we talk to them of their timetables and also the schedules, that how we can move together. And lastly is industry collaborations. Sitting on the value chain, we have a lot of many, even upstream or downstream or across horizontally. We have a lot of industry partners. So we believe that in order for us to move into a sustainable journey, that we need to work with partners. It's only not just ourselves or even or just between us and our customers. So we need the whole ecosystem work together. So we do that through our communications with our industries partners, and also through seminars and also discussion forums. So the goal is to how to make sure the supply chains is moving into a good directions.
Wonderful, fantastic. I think we can all agree with that. And like you say, it's consumer behaviour, it's influence, it's trends, and it is sourcing decision making. Tarek, is there any further reflections or anything you'd like to add to those comments made?
No, I'd just like to add a little bit there, and kind of agree on what's been said so far. I really liked both what Michelle and Clara said about sustainability being a journey, and I couldn't agree more with that. I'll come at this with a bit of an academic hat on, since we are in academia. But academia defines sustainability as a wicked problem or as a complex problem. The theory behind wicked or complex problems is that they are problems that have interchangeable continuously moving parts, meaning that the question itself keeps evolving. And because the question itself keeps evolving, the answer is also evolving as the question evolves. So it kind of fits in with what we have come to understand about sustainability today, because it is, if as the technology evolves, our understanding of sustainability evolves. And then when you take this, as the main question was, how do we actually operationalize it? It's not one solution. It's not one fix to the problem. And it's a series of trade-offs that you have to keep on making. And the trade-offs are generally you choosing the less of two evils. It's, we haven't found a solution that fixes it all yet. And the kind of solutions that we have at the minute are solutions that have less of an impact on the environment, not solutions that have zero impact on the environment yet. But as we evolve, as we keep as the technology evolves, as our understanding of sustainability evolves, as our understanding of our own behavior evolves, then potentially, as we said, it is a journey. We will find a way to achieve that net zero position that we're all striving to achieve. So it is definitely a journey.
A journey in a complex problem.
Sure. May I tag on it?
Of course.
Tarek, just as you mentioned, and also Clara, you mentioned about the value chain to the customer. Sustainability, I would say, is a nice problem to have. Maintain a very optimized the view on this topic. We touched base on this affordability, Rebecca, in your question. It is, yes, from the face value, you would say it's a cost up. You need more resource, more compliance, more things you need to put on the existing, how you operate, to, sometimes even to take the box. But I give you an example. In Hitachi Energy, we introduced a greener product where we have less this SF6 gas in our one of the product. We introduced that around 18 months ago, and it's more expensive because it's greener. We have actually over 50% of the existing customer base is willing to swap to a greener product. So although it may seem to be a cost, from supply chain point of view, but we also need to consider that Clara, you mentioned about competitive edge, and then the revenue, the benefits you're getting. So it's almost another overview of, in total, how the sustainability as a topic bring into the whole picture. Because in general, people or the company endorsing sustainability and active working on it is actually lasts longer than those that are not. So I just thought to share.
Wonderful. Yeah, and I think, like you said, there is this notion of there's a cost element, but also this competitive edge. And thinking about the complex problem and also managing costs and this competitive edge or this challenge, it's different and levels of complexity for different companies and businesses and industries, including SMEs to those large, more dominant players within the market. And I think, Michelle, that segues really nice into my next question, which is how can businesses, including SMEs and those in different countries, overcome cost challenges, but also competitive challenges, whilst building more sustainable and efficient supply chains? So I might lead on with yourself there, Michelle, if you wouldn't mind just talking to that one, given that it segues nicely from your comment there.
Sure. So how to overcome the cost and the kind of trade-off, right? The cost and the competitive edge. So as I mentioned, that we have a large supplier base, right? And it's very complex, different tiers of supply chain. What we are currently doing is we keep the inspiration level high, but as I mentioned, it's a journey. So we start with the baby steps, with the smaller steps, right? And I also mentioned that we actually embed sustainability in various different sides of supply chain operations. So I'll give you an example. When we select supplier, or as one of the supplier selection criteria, we would encourage everyone to go through EcoVadis assessment, right? And we'll also provide, the support to help them through the journey. But we're having a very reasonable approach. We're not saying you have to be the gold level, otherwise we don't use you. So we really, gradually build into this concept and take the supplier with us in the journey. And also I mentioned about we have the supplier sustainability development program where we're willing to invest into the supply chain and have this partnership approach for our key strategic and critical suppliers. We make sure that we're in this journey together. And then sorry, I'm being very repetitive. The last but not least is also the tool, right? Because mentioned about the transparency and how could we using kind of I think it's a great opportunity, right, with all the AIs and machine learning, what have you, outside in the market, and that would certainly be revolutionary, and that will for the company that be able to adapt that to really give them that competitive edge, and could be able to do the trade-off with the cost.
Wonderful, fantastic. Some really good insights there. Clara, if I could also ask your thoughts on that, please.
All right. I agree with what Michelle has been sharing. Many of our customers are SMEs, and most of the time when we talk about sustainability with them, I always use the saying that it's not an option. This is a direction that every business need to move towards too. But we don't need to start something big. We will have the targets, the vision set. But like Michelle said, that we can do step by step. Start from small. I think it's not only SMEs. Every business has limited resources, so we can't have do everything at one time. And because on the sustainability journey, it requires capacity buildings, and the business itself need to build up confidence that when they see something has changed, they actually see the benefit of it. They spend the expenses, the cost on it, but on the other hand, there will be some benefit of it. And so I think it's through doing step by step, build up the capacity within a company and build up confidence, change of the mindset, and also use technologies to adopt the technologies on some of the operations and to improve the resource efficiency. I think this is the way that I would suggest every business to take this directions to go. Yeah.
Wonderful. And Tarek, any final words from you before we move on to the next question?
Again, agreeing with both my colleagues there in that supply chain sustainability is an objective now for most businesses, and the way to achieve it is we've got all these tools now that maybe weren't available to us previously, but the advancements that we've got in technology, digitization and digitalization, actually, as Michelle was saying, give us that visibility, because as you go further back upstream in the supply chain, that visibility becomes quite difficult. So they say you've got your scope 1, scope 2, scope 3 emissions. Scope 1 emissions, these are the emissions that you are directly involved in, through the decisions that you're making. Then scope 2 decisions, these are the emissions from the suppliers that you depend on. And then as you go back, there's scope 3 emissions. These are the emissions from the energy providers that your suppliers then depend on. So it's like the supply of the supply of the supply. But then as you go upstream in the supply chain, that visibility of emissions becomes very difficult to see, the transparency of it, the visibility of it. And it is that question in terms of, well, how can I see the impact of my decisions? Because just seeing the scope 1 level is not sufficient enough. It's being able to track and trace how your impact is on the scope 3 emissions. and that is quite difficult. Even today, that is still quite difficult because, and I'll bring this forward. One of the main challenges in sustainability is that we have not yet agreed on how to measure it. We all have equivalency models in terms of how we equate our actions to the emissions, and these equivalency models are different. For example, GRI, which is the Global Reporting Initiative, have equivalency models that are different from the Gartner's ESG models. So which ones do we use then? So it kind of becomes difficult.
Yeah, and I think it's referring now to all three of your comments, then it really is about navigating invisibility in that, isn't it? And like you say, how do you standardize or define and define? And I think when we think about navigating the situation in the environment as we find ourselves in now, and a question that I'm going to pose to you is, how can businesses navigate evolving government regulation and sustainability requirements whilst ensuring resilient and compliant supply chains? And I think, given that we've got such a diverse panel here, I think we could get some really good global perspectives as well. And I think, Michelle, if I could pan to you first, please, in terms of understanding how do we navigate government regulation and sustainability to be resilient, but also to be compliant from an EU and global perspective.
Sure. I mean, consider what I do for a living. I'm the head of contract. So I put in terms and conditions across all supply chain, no exception. And this is actually true, right? Because we have a solid compliance section. And we also build that into our supplier code of conduct, right? And so we need to make sure that we are compliant in what we do. Internally, as we are a large company, right, there's many different functions across different business in the geographical locations. So we define the accountability, right? So who's accountable, and then the roles and responsibility, and to ensure that cross-functional, that we have a good collaboration internally. And it comes with that is the proper resource, right? You need to have involved with legal, you need to involve with compliance. What I want to highlight here is actually, in order to make it work, we really need to have the resource for project management, right? To actually be able to execute it. That's a lessons learned. But then, you know, when we're talking about it externally, we're really emphasizing the collaboration with our suppliers. As Tarek, you just mentioned, the different level, you know, the different data input. I think I saw some stats on an annual basis for regulatory requirements. We require, as a company, 400,000 data points from supplier. So that's enormous amount. And some of them suppliers not even tracking, right? They, for example, the CBAM, right, coming out, and we need to take the information from the supplier. So that's still something we're really heavily focusing on. And then other than that, one thing that in order to enable that compliance and to be able to show compliance, we mentioned about all the digital tools. For us, it's also important we have all the various different IT systems, you know, properly integrated, so we can track, you know, what's the spend, right? And based on the different threshold, the bill of materials, right? The POs and relevant, you know, kind of carbon, you know, emission data, and trying to make sure that we have that visibility as much as we can, and to make sure that we're compliant.
Wonderful. And Tarek, anything from I suppose, a UK centric or a UK focus to add to those reflections?
I think we realise how difficult the sustainability and how complex the sustainability issue is. And from a UK perspective, I think we can all see how some of the deadlines, how some of the targets have kind of been pushed back a little. With you know, that there was a target, there was an initiative that we'll all have just electric vehicles by a certain date, and now this has been pushed back. So it's not a straightforward path. And the other thing that was kind of in discussion is, would it be feasible to have a carbon tax where companies are then taxed on the level of emissions that they have? And that's a whole kind of door to speculation and discussion. And obviously, who would eventually bear the cost of this tax? Would it be the consumer, or would it actually be the companies? And then if companies are being taxed on their emissions, will then, like, sometime in the future, would individuals be then taxed as well on their households, for example? Would that be part of your council tax? And actually, we're talking about the UK, but actually, in the US, for example, if you look at California, some states in the US have already kind of introduced some of these taxes, where if you're buying an electronic device in California, the state of California, part of the price is the cost to recycling. It's already included in the price that you're paying as a consumer. It's just and then if we look at our neighbours, like in the EU, with the Supply Chain Due Diligence Act, that's just come into focus now, and it's basically asking any company that is operating and dealing with the EU. So either you're operating in the EU, or you are dealing with companies in the EU, or you're selling a product in the EU, then you have to showcase ethical practices all the way back to your upstream suppliers. And then, how is that done? How do we showcase that? I can showcase easily that I've got ethical practices with my first tier suppliers, but then as you go back up the supply chain, again, that problem becomes really difficult. And I really like what Michelle was saying, is that there's 4,000 data points that they're looking at, and not all the suppliers are actually collecting this data. So it's that transition, and then it's the drivers towards that transition. What is the motivating factor? Is it the policy? Is it the stick or the carrot, basically? Is it that the companies themselves are motivated to do it because they have a sustainability objective, or is it the companies are waiting until the policies come enforced by government regulations and then they have to do it?
I think that is a key point. It's thinking about that consistency and the visibility and the data collection of it. And Clara, just to segue to you then, in terms of your focus, Hong Kong, China, Asia. So your reflections there about how do we ensure we're resilient and compliant, taking into account government regulation and sustainability requirements your side?
So internally, we have the compliance team and sustainability team. So the compliance team will make sure that our operations, our business is comply with the listing rules requirements. And our sustainability teams is make sure that our whole operations is working towards our target, and also making our we have a common data management platform, so it communicates with our different business unit, and make sure that the data we collect are transparent to within the whole organization. So this is how and then we keep update with the government's regulations on this side. Externally, that's because we supply materials to different industries, and in some cases, different industries, their requirements can be very specific. So we talk to customers with different industries directly, and also gather their information and also their requirements. That's one thing. And secondly, we work with different industry associations, because they are more industry specific, so they can we can communicate with each other on how we as a supplier can play a role in this industries on their sustainability journey, and at the same time we understand the trend of this industries is moving, so how we can better prepare ourselves as a supplier. So this is the way that we try to keep up to the regulations, the compliance, both internally and externally.
Wonderful, fantastic. And I think how you keep up with them and how we begin to address them and operationalise them feeds into this notion that we've been alluding to, innovative practice, isn't it? And innovation in how we go about doing it. And I think my next question is definitely one for Tarek and Michelle on this one, because I know you are quite passionate on this, is in terms of what innovations can make supply chains both cost effective and environmentally friendly, thinking about that complex problem, Tarek, there. So Tarek, if you want to kick off, and then Michelle, please.
Absolutely. So one of the things that we're currently doing in WMG, and I think this is not just WMG, this is actually across Warwick, is we are working on our curricula in what we currently teaching our students. We have done stakeholder engagement maps where we've listened to the industry, and then we've also listened to you know what's in the literature at the minute, what's state of the art, what's best in class, and we're kind of looking at how do we develop a global citizen, so that our graduates from WMG and from Warwick have that awareness of sustainability, because it's that generation of graduates that are going to be making the impactful decisions. So what we're hoping to achieve is to develop this as a core in all our graduates, so that once they are in a position in the industry, they are, first of all, they are educated on what sustainability is, and they are educated on the impact of the decisions that they are making within the different sustainability frameworks. So that's first. Second is obviously digitization and digitalization. So we cannot manage what we cannot measure. That's ABCs to management. So we need to be able to measure the impact of our decisions. We need to have agreed on frameworks that allow us to measure and then make use of these measures through good decision making. And currently in supply chains today, maybe we have too much data. And actually, it's about having someone that is educated and understands which data points to look at. Which data points do I actually need that help me make the decision for transportation? Which data points do I need that help me make the decisions for product design? Which data points do I need to help me make decisions for process design? Because sustainability is not just one aspect. Sustainability is looking at all of these and how all of them work together, and there is an overlap between them. So product design is affecting your process design is affecting your supply chain design. That's going to feed into your supplier decisions. That's going to feed into the frequency of your deliveries. That's going to feed into are you going for local or global supplies? It's all one, and it's about being able to see it all as one and see the overlap, and then use the data points correctly, knowing which data points to look at, have the systems in place that capture the data points, and then have a framework agreed on by all the stakeholders to measure and then make the decisions. This is how I envision the path, the way forward. And it all begins with having someone that is educated to the level in order to be able to utilize all of this.
Wonderful, thank you, Tarek. Michelle.
I'm just so excited. I want to tag on what just Tarek says. So I think we really, as an industry, we really need to collaborate with academia, universities, and to take all this practical, advice that you come up with in theory and application and really implement it. There's so many good ideas. So what we're currently doing, I cannot comment too much because I'm not in the product design area, but I know that as a company we really embedded into our embedded this 5R principle. Not sure the 5R is what we kind of like invented, but basically rethink our product design, right? Rethink of our process design, rethink how the whole the customer side and supply chains all fit together, and throughout that we also have the reduce, right, and reduce the the hazard material and link back to the design again, reuse of the recycled material, which not sure that I'm technical, correct here, because we have recycle later on, and we reuse wherever we can, and we repair because we just set up a new service organization in the company. And then last but not least, recycle. So I think that we're doing a lot, as Tarek saying, trying to have that upfront, thinking embedded in, rather than always be reactive in doing things, right? Now come back to my expertise in supply chain area. And I always very passionate and really encourage everyone to make full utilize of your supply chain base. So we're running the, not even a program, but it's our approach change with our supply chain. So we really trying to get the best out of the supplier through innovation, because at the end of the day, they are the experts in terms of the product and the services that they're supplying to us. So we're running a lot of the innovation workshop, and we have also the mechanism of how we incentivize supplier, right? How we're sharing the benefits, how we can be their route to market, so we can be more competitive as a whole. So we're doing also that element, really utilizing your supply chain. And it's not only for the first tier supplier, and we encourage the first tier to do the same, for their second tier, and really trying to flow it down. So just some of the insights.
No, wonderful, and that's great. And I think it really is, with innovation, we also think about technology as well, don't we? And technological developments and technological innovations. I think it's probably a question now, if that's okay, Clara, that I'm going to now pose to you. What role does technology play in making supply chains more sustainable? And how will AI, so artificial intelligence, and other emerging technologies, do you believe, shape the future of supply chains?
I think definitely it's very important. Like for our using as an example that we have the ERP systems to collect the data in our daily operations, and we have analytic tools to identify the weak area and also the potential, the areas that have potential to grow. And then we are trying to adopt AI to do some predictions model along the supply chains, whether this is affecting the supply or other environmental factors, especially on our production side, whether the climate conditions will affect our production's performance, productivities, and all that. And lastly, what we think is that blockchain technologies would be a good directions to move, because we have to make sure that the data we collect along the supply chain is the data is authentic and is true and trustable data. So So these are all the things that we are doing at the planning stage, and some of this already implemented. But overall, that we do believe technology helps us a lot in going along the supply chain. Yeah.
Wonderful, great. And when we think about cutting edge and we think about feeding forward, I think to pick up on a point that Tarek and Michelle said about universities helping bridge this gap between academia and industry, and that's something that we're really passionate about here in Warwick Manufacturing Group, is being that conduit. So I suppose my final question then to the panel is, how can universities help bridge the gap between academia and industry to drive this innovation in supply chains? So anyone can jump in with this. I think it's one that we're going to all be very passionate about. So any thoughts or reflections on that then, please?
I mean, I'm being a member in WMG, 20 years ago. I really enjoy the program where you have that link to the industry, right? Where you have the placement, where they see the real world, how it operates, and also for the student to have this hands-on experience, right? So one of the things I'm really, highly promoting and welcome is this kind of intern program, right? Where, we really put something into use.
Agreed. Yeah, and it's a practicality. It's making our graduates, some would argue, fit for purpose, and that can operationalise, the concepts, take them off the page, if you will. Clara.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Michelle, you go first. Anything you want to add?
Apologies, I'm getting excited. And like Tarek, you mentioned that you develop that curriculum, right? You actually equip the students with that skill set, right, for the future workforce. The things will be so different when my daughter, grown up and graduated into the workforce than when I was. So I just thinking we really need to promote more of the collaboration between the university and the industry.
Totally agree with what Michelle said. We work closely with universities, both on research projects, collaborations, and also internships. And this help us and also the academia side to understand what we need. And on the other hand, we are using the internships opportunities also showcase to the students that what's the metal industries is working on and how it impacts to the supply chain and also the manufacturing process. So I think it's important that both areas talk to each other more frequently, understanding to bridge the gap, make sure that the trainings at the universities is fit with what's the real world needs. I think this is important. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Agreed. Tarek.
I'll just build on that in terms of, at WMG, we teach at the kind of forefront of what is academic and what is best in class and practice as well. So by engaging with the industry, obviously, we could then have case studies of actual applications of how sustainability was embedded in different projects in different industries, in different services, and then we bring it to life. One of the things that we strive for in WMG is the teaching and delivery has to be authentic. So by authentic, we mean that we bring in real life scenarios into a classroom setting, and then we allow students to be responsible for the decisions that they're making. So we simulate real life exercises, we role play exercises, we have gamified case studies where we give the students the responsibility of making the decisions in a safe environment. And then we discuss the impact of the decisions that they're making, the output of the decisions that they're making, and we look at the different variables, we look at the different scenarios. So one of the things that we have in WMG is any question that we ask, we always start off the answer with "it depends," because it's more interesting to discuss the variables that impact the decision than to just know the outcome or just know the answer. And it's that kind of teaching and delivery where we need the industry, we need them as business partners to bring in the expertise, to bring in the case studies, to bring in their industrial experience, so that we can then utilize that and develop that teaching experience for the students as well. Because end of the day, it's not just about knowledge sharing or knowledge retention. It's about, as Michelle and Clara were saying, it's about skills development. And we are very much interested in the skills that the students are going to have when they graduate, and mapping these skills to the industry, to the business needs, to the environment that they're going to be graduating in, and not just the environment that they're going to be graduating in, but the environment that they're going to be working in for the next 40, 50 years. And this is what is really interesting for us in WMG as educators.
And I think I have to echo all those sentiments there. I think we want a portfolio of courses that are fit for purpose, that meet the needs of industry, that we have clear skill mapping, mapping to skill gaps. And more importantly, we want graduates that can go out into the world and work and utilise and operationalise, enhance whatever job role or the industry with which they're in. And I think as an alumni community, that is something that hopefully with a call to action, we can all start exploring. And Tarek and I welcome any comments or feedback, or to have a discussion on any of our courses within the portfolio with which you work with industry, feel passionate about an area, or think that a course should reflect, looking forward. And I think it's very clear from today's discussion that smart, sustainable and affordable supply chains, they are achievable through innovation, collaboration and adaptability, really stressing that notion of collaboration here. From shifting customer expectations to advancing technologies and evolving regulations, business must rethink traditional models to build more resilient and responsible supply chains. And we have a part to play in rethinking those traditional models and the practicality of those. A key takeaway for me, and I hope it is for you as well joining us, is the crucial role of academia in this transformation. Universities serve as a hub for cutting-edge research, industry partnerships and talent development. And as Tarek said, especially here within WMG and the University of Warwick, we're really passionate about bridging theory with real-world application. And by fostering collaboration between academia and industry, we can drive forward-thinking solutions that balance sustainability, efficiency and affordability. For further insights and resources on building resilient and sustainable supply chains, I'd encourage you to explore the Supply Chain Resilience Hub at the University of Warwick, and that can be found on our website. And that was developed by the supply chain researchers who Tarek and I have the pleasure of working with. And it offers several key supply chain toolkits. So we mentioned that, didn't we, about the use and the utilisation, the development of toolkits. It offers several supply chain toolkits, such as a resilience navigator and digital readiness tools, which is something I think we all picked on today. And all these are accessible for free. So please do take a look and explore those. I'd like to, more importantly, thank all our guests, so Clara, Tarek and Michelle, for giving their time today and sharing your invaluable insights with us, and for the audience for joining us this morning, this afternoon or this evening, depending on where you are in the world, and for submitting your questions and joining us. If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, you can find out more about the research at Warwick, which you may find interesting. As I said, there'll be links available to our Supply Chain Resilience Hub and all the good things that we do there. We've made sure that there's a recording of this webinar, and this will be circulated to you afterwards by email. And please feel free to share this recording on. I hope today is the start of a narrative, a dialogue, for us to start working together and start thinking forward on how we develop toolkits, how we think about sustainability and resilience, upstream, downstream, even from the acorn, which is the education with which we are then equipping our graduates with. I'd also be grateful if you could take a few moments to complete our quick feedback survey, because this will help us improve our future webinars, and I'll ensure there's a link now live in the chat for you. I'd also like us all, as I said, to stay connected. And you'll see on the screen now, there's a QR code where you can update your details and find out about any upcoming events. Again, you can also engage with our socials, because it really is about us developing and enhancing our community. And our Warwick University alumni and WMG alumni, it's growing by the day. So finally, it really has been my pleasure to host our most esteemed colleagues, Clara, Tarek and Michelle. And it's been wonderful to see all you here today. And thank you ever so much for posting the questions in advance and also in our chat. And myself and the team look forward to seeing you next time. So that's enough from me. Thank you ever so much and enjoy the rest of your day. Take care all. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Rebecca. The pleasure's all mine. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Clara.